It's another episode of the Next Fix podcast. Today, we're talking about a topic it's overlooked. It seems to be sneaking away with teens' lives and even adults too. So we've brought a professional in to talk about it, and we've got Chris Rogers with us today. And so, just real quickly, Chris, just tell us how you're doing, and then maybe just a brief introduction of who you are, man. On the high level.
Man, I really appreciate it. So, again, my name is Chris Rogers, and I'm happy to be here. So, a little bit of what I do, and I'm certainly sure we'll dive into how this all came to be. Considering most of my professional experience, I was working as a music teacher for a long time. I'm in New York myself, go Knicks, and I am a little on the tired side because I was late watching the game, so I will admit that. But my goodness, man, what a game! Anyway, yeah, I was a teacher for most of my professional life. I've taught in the Bronx, Manhattan. I've been all over, and behind closed doors, I was coping unhealthily, and I was coping unhealthily not with alcohol, not with a particular substance. Thankfully, that wasn't my vice. I'm gonna say a word that will maybe make some people squirm and almost has this like Voldemort quality about it, like we can't talk about it for reasons X, Y, Z. But the word is pornography, right? And it's something that exists and it's something that's real. And to make a long story short, you name the thing, I've done the thing. It escalated behaviors that I never once thought I would be a part of, but there I was. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I was
Well,
coping behind the scenes.
sure, sure. And in what we, and I think everybody, when I say this and I say it often, it's because I just believe it's inherently true. We love a comeback story, right? So what we want to know is we want to know when this train came off the tracks and how ugly did it get? Because I've heard some stories about pornography I didn't quite imagine. I wholeheartedly know that I was addicted to pornography, and it was, an issue. It wasn't my number one issue though. However, it existed. And so when I heard some of these stories and kind of what can happen, but most importantly though, I want to know, what was the catalyst or the genesis for you to get into this kind of work? Because you mentioned, professionally you're teaching music and that's that's a whole other ball game, right, brother?
Whole
So
other ballgame.
what did that rock bottom scenario look like?
Yeah, yeah. So again, like I said, my behaviors escalated into things that were more risky. And there was one situation in particular where I delved into the world of contacting, escorts. And basically, I had a really profound experience. What happened was I used to sift this particular site where, you'd find somebody and, you discuss rates and logistics and blah, blah, blah. So I met up with this woman and basically she came over my crappy basement apartment that I had at the time and gave her money and clothes started coming off and I noticed that she had like a tattoo on her shoulder. It was really vivid and just really colorful and everything and was someone's name. So I was like, wow, I messed with your ink. Like, who is that on your shoulder? And she goes, that's my daughter. And I was kind of like, it my fantasy crash landed into reality. It's like I knew this was a real person, but in that moment I noticed, whoa, I was making this human being with a past and thoughts and feelings and everything as an object of my form of escapism. And
Right.
to add a poetic element into it, turns out that her daughter's name was Faith.
Interesting.
And it truly made me consider what I was putting my faith into. And it woke me up and shook me up. And I said, okay, I get it now. Something's got to
Interesting.
change. This is not the way I want to live. This is not who I want to be. And down the line, I found a program that really worked for me in the middle of the pandemic. And by the way, I was still acting out this way in the middle of the pandemic.
Right. Okay. So yeah, yeah, yeah. It was the 5 foot rule, was it? Was it? Was it?
Not quite.
Right. Sure. Sure. And now kind of lead us into that, right? So there's, an epiphany, an awakening. It had some elements to that particular circumstance that spoke to you, but how did it really start for you? Because that's always curious. Like, can you work your way back and connect those dots?
Absolutely. So I was about 14 when I first discovered porn, which by societal accounts, I was a bit of a late bloomer. Because,
Right.
we'll talk about where we're at now, where we're at like the average age of about 8 of someone stumbling onto porn. But
Yeah.
we'll dive into that later. But yeah, I was about 14 and where I was growing up, it wasn't a topic that was talked about, when it came to things like sex or porn and things like that. It wasn't exactly dinner table topics, right?
Sure.
And I was both literally and metaphorically left to my own devices. As far as
Right.
me, of course, being 14, we remember
Mm.
how volatile an age adolescence is and having these feelings that are very real and human and healthy to have, but feeling as if I couldn't share them. Because again, when it comes to the world of compulsive behaviors, it seems that pornography is kinda like the red-haired stepchild of the addiction world. It's like, I can go up in front of a room of people and be like, "Thanks to the, a program and through using tools and I was able to overcome alcohol dependency. Yeah!" Or I was able to overcome coke or this and that. Yeah, thanks to working a program, the power of God, this, that, and the third. I no longer have like, I don't watch porn anymore. And it's like, what is wrong with
Yeah.
you? Like, suddenly you're this icky thing. So, it
It's
started as an
true.
adolescence,
Well,
and
look, I wanna just forgive me for interrupting. I'm like a small child in the middle of a movie, and so but it's true, man, and, like, even a professional like yourself and addressing it as much as you have, I noticed that just now when you mentioned it, maybe you are that good and you dropped, like, your decibels down a little bit when you say it, but people won't say it. I noticed that I do that. When I say porn, I it's like, man, there is a difference, and I think more and it may be and you're the professional, so it may be because more people deal with that and they get away with it or they can do it without it like they can do it without absolutely crumbling their lives. It's just like there's a level of secrecy that seems like it's more capable. It's more capable to keep it a secret. And I think that like it just isn't brought to the surface. So when you say that word, man, I'd be curious, to like actually be able to see every person's like reaction in the room because it's just different, man. And so I agree with you that it's the stepchild. It's like, everybody wants to get behind fighting drugs, right? And I think that pornography is doing it's a crazy statement to say, but it's doing as much damage, even though that damage isn't like overdoses and blatant deaths, maybe. Well, but it's ruining lives, and so that is so crazy. But
yeah,
but again, no, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, like, there's this innate connection to our sexual nature, because again, it is human, and this is sort of where it kinda deviates from the story or testimony of that of your, someone who's addicted to a particular substance, you know? It's like, for all intents and purposes, I can go the rest of my life without having a mojito, right? Like, I can go the rest of my life, without consuming a particular substance and generally be okay. But when it comes to my sexual nature, that's not going anywhere. So the moment there's like this shame aspect involved with that, the moment there's that guilt tripping aspect of that, it's sort of like, don't touch my stuff. When you talk about my sexual nature, in a way, inadvertently, you're kind of talking about me. And especially when you are young and impressionable, and let's say you are exposed to something like pornography, or even if something like sex is kind of like poo pooed, or just we don't talk about that here for reasons XYZ, when it is led with shame, right? It's sort of this thing where it's like, okay, well, mom, dad, pastor, teacher, whoever, they say that this is bad, so therefore I must be bad because it's a part of my nature as opposed to alcohol or a drug, right? So there is that sort of like, the privacy aspect. It's so personal,
Yeah,
how can you say that, this part of me is bad? There's a difference between, sexuality and lust, where sexuality is human and healthy and normal, whereas lust is the fixation on that. Just like how
yeah,
people have an unhealthy relationship with eating or throwing
right,
up. It's a behavioral based addiction where it just sort of deviates from that of the substance addiction sort of path.
right. And you really struck a chord in me because it made me realize that sex is a need. It's a need for us. And so alcohol and drugs are not a need, built into us. But again, I derailed this, but so you're 14 years old and you are, you're figuring out, well, maybe not figuring out, but you're exploring your own questions about your nature and your desires and stuff like that. And so like what were the first kind of ways that you started digging into this? Was it just the internet, or I mean, how did it look?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I was a teenager, we had the family computer back when having a family computer was, a thing. And now everyone has their own devices. And that's, probably reasons why, numbers are going down as far as when children are exposed to porn. But yeah, it started as a pop up and it sounds a little corny, but it truly was love at first sight. Like I was transfixed. Like what started off as innocent curiosity, like I had never seen a woman's naked body before, maybe other than my mom accidentally. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just like
Right, right.
thing. And next thing I knew, and I didn't realize this at the time, but around that time, like stuff was kind of going on with my family. Like, my parents are divorced, and there was, at that time there was a lot of tension in the household, right? And thinking back, there was a lot of coping that was being done more than
Mm.
exploring. I would consider it normal. This is just kind of the expectation. Where
Okay. When you say expectation, how do you mean? Like,
when it comes to the things that kids my age would talk about, like it was like a cultural expectation. Like, you're not like there's something almost wrong with you if you haven't heard of this particular sex tape or if you haven't watched this particular thing. So I can only imagine what, kids nowadays are dealing with, that kind of pressure, especially in the age of social media, where, man, I remember how big of a deal it was making my first MySpace account, and like how social media was like just an option, just like something you could do if you wanted. Now,
right now it's yeah.
that's sort of the cultural expectation. So, which is why I'm so passionate about, I know what it's like to be 14, right? And have those feelings and to have that curiosity. And because of that lack of conversation, because of that lack of openness, and God bless my parents, they were doing the best they could at that time. And, they had other fish to fry. So this is not a blame game at all. But it's a matter of sex exists,
Yeah.
porn exists, and we can only sweep things under the rug for so long. So the name of the game is curiosity. And
Right.
so
Well,
that
I wanna share with you real quick, like, because when you mentioned family computer, I was like, "Oh my gosh," and I remembered this, and I remember I got oh my gosh, like, I'm, like, feeling a whole bunch of stuff right now because you made me remember it, and I didn't
sure.
necessarily remember it so much, but now it's all, like, flooding back to me. We had a family computer, and at that time, I don't know if there are people who don't understand what we're talking about. There's just, like, 1 computer per family, and a buddy of mine, he happened to have had, like, a better system, and so he gave me a bunch of printed out pornographic pictures. So I had this stack, right? I had this this pile of printed out black and white pornography photos. And they were just all over. They ran the gambit, right? Some of them were just naked. Some of them were actually intercourse and so forth. There's probably maybe 100, 150, something like that. Whatever it was, my grandma found it. I lived with my grandparents. And I had to go in to my grandfather's office and he went through them one by one. And he was telling me what was okay and what wasn't okay. And it was wild, man. I was so like it was the craziest experience. And now kind of looking back, I appreciate it because he made a decision to have a tough conversation. And that conversation, it may not be, well, I don't believe that it is happening a lot these days.
Wow. So if
So
I understand you right, like, he saw those pictures and it was like, okay, this is essentially appropriate and this is not realistic or inappropriate. Like that's pretty much that was it?
sure, he was like, anything that was just like a naked body, that was like to him, right? And he's my grandpa, and here I am, and I think I was like 14, 15,
For
but
sure.
he was like, saying this is okay to look at like a naked woman and this is okay. But like anything that was explicit, more explicit than that, like he was deeming that it was like too much, right? And so it was just a crazy experience, for the times. And I only shared it because it was like flooded into my mind, which it
Yeah,
hasn't been, who knows how long. But
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, and again, sorry to derail us here. However, you mentioned curiosity,
Yeah.
and so I want to know, like, how deep did your curiosity get? Like, I mean, like, are there levels to this? Like, is this okay and that's not okay? Like, I just don't know what is normalcy these days, right?
Sure. Well, when I say the word curiosity, what I'm really talking about is how to engage in a conversation with someone who might be struggling with a sexually compulsive behavior. Because, as you know, whether it's a substance based addiction or a behavioral, when it comes to true recovery, or rather when it comes to like a fixation on a particular vice, it's not the thing, it's the place from which it's coming from. It's not just the substance, it's not just the behavior itself. It's the place within, it's what's happening internally to the point where it's affecting me externally. And a lot of recovery work is about getting to the bottom of what that stuff is. What's the thing I'm trying to medicate? What's the thing I'm trying to run away from? What's the thing I'm trying to numb out or this, that, and the third from, right? And what my heart is, and not to be all self-pluggy, but I why did I leave teaching to pursue this head on? Because like I said, man, I know what it's like
Yeah.
to be 14 and to have, like I said, these questions, these feelings, but not having a trusted adult to confide into. I didn't have that grandpa moment. It's
Well,
just
you're
like,
right.
because
Right.
if I
Yeah.
had that been in my shoes, again, it might have been like, what are all these pictures doing here?
Well, that's so now in the interim, like you're 14, and then it kind of boiled up to the surface to the point where you're actually paying for sex,
Yeah.
right? And you know, how long was that going on for?
Well, like I said, I joined this particular program during the pandemic around like August, September 2020. And yeah, it was a system. Shout out to Elevator Recovery, who is the name of the company. And that's the, company that I work alongside nowadays as a coach. And it completely transformed my perspective. Again, it's not just a thing, it's a place where it's coming from. That's where I learned that. But as far as how you kind of escalate from, that innocent curiosity to, risky behaviors. Yeah, it for me, and I notice it's a common tale amongst other gentlemen who kind of have a similar story as to mine. It's the thrill of the chase.
Mm,
It's like that child. It's not just porn addiction; it's fantasy addiction. It's like there's this great book that I actually have right over there. It's called Breaking the Cycle, who I literally just did a whole coaching session on. Book's called Breaking the Cycle, author George Collins. Pretty easy read, awesome book. And there's this one chapter called The Blondes and the Beamer. So long story short, it's about this guy. He's a sex and porn addiction counselor, and he's talking about his own journey too. So he's driving along, this particular highway, and he's like driving past like, this person with long flowing blonde hair. And given his level of addiction, all he wanted to do was just drive alongside them and like just catch a glimpse because that would be enough to fantasize. Now, this is going on for 20, 30, 40 miles, trying to like just catch a glimpse. They finally reach like, like a turn and at a stoplight, and he turns over and turns out that this beautiful blonde-haired woman was an elderly man who just so happened to have long blonde hair. When your fantasy crash lands into reality. So
right.
it's not so much having the thing. It's not so
Yeah.
much having the woman. It's not so much, having sex, really. It's the thrill of the chase. It's like that childish rush. It's like, you ever ding dong ditch a house before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that, like, I could get away with this. It's that
Sure.
thrill. It's that thing that we do. It's like when your imagination is hijacked, when we're focused and trying to transcend into this world of grandiosity, of being something that we're not, where consequences don't exist. It's like a yearning for freedom, really. to the point where, again, we're putting ourselves and possibly others at risk if it kind of goes down deep enough into the rabbit hole. And that's truly what the addiction is. It's not so much the thing that we're seeing on the screen. If it becomes a compulsive behavior, again, it's that kind of artificial version of freedom. It's that artificial
Right.
version of intimacy. It's that form of escapism where we don't have to face the current discontent we're already experiencing.
Sure. Yeah, and the more visceral our virtual experiences become, the more that we will choose that, right?
Yeah.
And I
And
think that making that choice has really led a lot of people, and especially our youth, like, down the wrong path. So tell me a little bit about you you learn about Faith, right? Faith is the daughter. And so after that exchange, right? Like and believe me, man, but my sexual addiction was always so wild to me. It was more brief than all of the dope highs I've ever had, right? It's like as soon as it's done, I'm like, what like it's gone, right? I'm like, I can't believe I just did that. It was always so abrupt how quickly. I feel like I came off of drugs a lot slower than my sexual escapades.
very
And
common.
so after that happened, like, what was going on with you? Like what was going on inside? Like what was going on in your head?
Like, I had a bit of an identity crisis. It was, again, a trait of a character that I didn't want to play, and I was sick of it. It makes me cringe to say, but I don't remember this woman's name. But I can tell you, like I know mine, I think about Faith all the time. I think about Faith all the time. It is world, man, and you don't want no part of it. And again, it's when your fantasy crash lands into reality. I know I've said that phrase a couple times, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like when I say the thrill of the chase, I talk to a lot of like younger guys and they're all about like, oh, I want to get, this many women and, have sex with everybody I see. We all remember being, 15, 16. But, okay, you can do that. You can get the girl, right? But what'll happen when you actually have them? Can you keep them? It's like what will happen when Wile E. Coyote catches the Roadrunner? It's you have to face reality. It's like here is this again human in front of you as opposed to an object of your own desire. Using them as an escape pod to not have to face the life that you're not really liking at the moment. It is yeah, you're addicted to the thrill of the chase, and it's like a car you use to not drive towards something, but only designed to drive away.
Well, how the hell did you get out of the driver's seat? Like, how did that look? Like, how did you like, after all of that's said and done, I mean, did you have a suspicion on what to do? I mean, did you had somebody that maybe, and usually, I mean, I doubt that people have one person that really knows any of this kind of stuff. I feel like it's something that most people just hide this above everything else, right? But what
Yeah.
did you do?
Well, in this program, I truly learned the art form of presence. And without getting overly, woo woo or anything like that, it was developing, again, the name of the game being curiosity. How did this discontent emerge? Because it didn't fall out of the sky, it didn't come out of nowhere. Diving into my own conditioning, diving into my own history, diving into kind of like, like the ET, like Reese's Pieces trail that led me to where I was. And I really had to develop a healthier relationship with the different parts of me. This compulsive side of me, I used to beat myself in the head with it and just I had this notebook. It's somewhere in my office, but I used to try to just quit cold turkey, willpower, and I would literally count my days. Like, I hadn't acted out in like 10 days, 30 days, whatever. And if I were to have a slip, I would just beat the crap out of myself. Like, you blew it and saying a whole bunch of worse stuff. But I realized that I was identifying so intimately with this compulsive part of me. When in reality, if you're trying to think about layers, there's this question that emerges. And that question is, what is this really? Beyond this urge, beyond this wanting to act out, beyond this want to escape, it's like, what do I actually want to feel right now? And for me, it was a sense of, I mentioned the word freedom, but I think something more accurate, to be honest with you, was that sense of not needing to be in control. With the positions that I've been used to, whether it's being a teacher or being a coach, and I'm a musician as well, like people see me on stage and whatnot. I'm used to being on,
Mm,
kind of being the person with the answers or being the person in charge, in control, right? And for me, this was kind of my form of quote unquote self-care. This was finally something that I could
right.
pour into me. I could finally fill my own cup in a way. And all I
Interesting.
truly wanted beyond the behavior itself was to be loved, to
Yeah.
feel like I was being poured into, like someone actually cared for me. And thinking back, I was so desperate to feel that I was willing to pay for it. I was willing to pay for an artificial version of that. That's where I
Right.
was. And through the work that I've done, how did I get out of the driver's seat was realize that, you know, it's just, first of all, a part of me. It's not the entirety of me. There's this exercise that's also taught in this book called Breaking the Cycle, and I'll make it quick, but it completely was a paradigm shift for me. And I teach it to my clients today. It's called dialoguing. So it's a simple example, but what you do comes from the world of internal family systems, schema therapy, things like that. But what you do is you take a notebook, put pen to paper, and you literally have, it's awesome. You have a scripted out conversation with this particular sub personality, which is literally a
So
part.
so you are addressing the personality who is making that choice to act out, right? That's who you're addressing? Is that
So I'm over here and it is over here. So
the
just in that
pornography
one.
or the action?
Exactly. So it's like, again, I'm over here, it's over here. So therefore, I am not it, and it is not me. So
Okay.
literally, you literally write from that sub-personality's perspective. Like you give it a name. Like I would call mine like Addict Chris, and
Right.
literally speak right from its perspective. And in order to
And it's a
do this,
dialogue. You're writing both parts. Interesting.
exactly. It's a back and forth.
Right.
And in order to write from its perspective, you have to feel it. You have to process it. So
Right.
you're naming the feeling, you're validating it by giving it a name, and you're actually going through it. You're facing reality.
Wow.
It's such a profound exercise, but
That
it's
really I
required.
mean, that sounds like it really to because just to your point about having the feeling because 'cause you're stepping into those shoes and, the added benefit of writing it out slows you down enough to really consider that, right? And that's
Right.
why you said notebook, right? And it's not it would have to involve being slow enough and it would have to include like, it would handwriting it has to be the way that it's done so
It
that you
has
could
to.
slow down and then separate. But once you separate that, I think that there's a lot of value in and kind of realizing that it's just a one sliver of who you truly are. And so you can maybe help that, right? Wow, man,
And
that is
that's
that
what
is
it is. And fast forward about a year and a half of doing this exercise, a
yeah.
year and a half of having a dialogue with my addict self. That's the name I kept on calling it. I finally learned what this part wanted to the point where I actually changed the name of the subpersonality. When I finally discovered it's the part of me that wants to stay a boy, aka free of responsibilities, I ended up renaming my subpersonality Peter Pan Sr.
Right.
It's the
Right.
part that always wants to stay a boy. It's that doesn't want to be in charge because I'm kind of like that all the time. So it was such a profound experience for me. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm so passionate about talking about it's not just the behavior. I mean, the behavior has its own dangers and consequences all in itself. But the reason why we keep on coming back to it, like the dawn of that euphoric recall, that where we're kind of like remembering the high of a situation, not thinking about the consequences, it didn't come from nowhere. And really, the opposite of addiction, it's not merely sobriety, it's presence. Presence
Mm.
with both who you are, what you're feeling, and what you actually need beyond what you want. Now, being present with your feelings, it's not letting your thoughts or subpersonalities run amok and let them do whatever they want. But I like to think of it this way. let's imagine and I've given this analogy on calls before, so forgive me if I'm in coach mode. But, let's say, you're sitting at home, right, after a long day of work, whatever. You just did an episode, you're kind of spent for the day, right? And all
Right.
of a sudden you hear a knock at the door. It's like late at night, you're done for the day, but someone's knocking at the door. You go to answer it, and the person at the door is someone that you're not exactly a fan of. So whoever the first person that popped into your head, that's who's at the door right now. Now, in this scenario, you got two different options. You can either one, like slam the door in their face, peace out, or you can let them in at least for a little while and ask why they came to visit you at all. Dialoguing is about choosing that option. Pour them a cup of coffee, and just ask why they came to visit you. Ask it questions back because it's your nervous system being your nervous system. Your body's trying to tell you something, but here's the best part. Because it's your house, you have the final say to when it's time for them to leave.
Wow.
So you
Okay.
separate yourself from the urge or feeling or whatever,
Mhm.
but not out of like, "Ugh, like shoe thought, don't bother me. Oh, let me distract myself." Like you're giving it the opportunity to express itself, which is all it wants. All a feeling wants is to be felt. That's it. But again, it's an empowering thing too, because again, this is my house. So
Yeah.
thank you. Appreciate the visit. It's time for you to leave. You take the power back. So when I learned how to do that, that's what kind of got me out of the driver's seat.
That's nuts, man. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
dude.
that is really it sounds to me highly effective, right? It sounds like it's incredibly it's just a really valuable way to look at it. It's so simple too, right? Now, simple but not easy to do, right?
Right,
Like I say,
right.
I understand there's a difference, right? The approach, it makes sense to me. However, those that you're addressing it. It's a hard conversation. It's somebody that you don't want to have that conversation with. And if you make that choice to do it, you can really get ahead of it, or you can at least make some progress and yeah, that's such an interesting thing that you use. Now, is that the system that you're implementing in like a nutshell? Or I know because like it's called reboot, teen reboot, correct? Is like that's your system and that's like kind of what you're doing. It says a lot, right? And so clearly you're working with teens. And so how did that look like for you to either develop it or step into it and bail on teaching music and all that, right? Like how did it come to be what it is today?
Yeah, it's interesting because I noticed after teaching in the middle of the pandemic, I really got a feel for how my students were affected, beyond just getting sick, right? It was an education that we didn't intend on. What I mean by that is when we think about like what students were learning at the time, because we were doing school online, right? We're talking about, okay, here is pretty much everything you could ever really want or need all in one stop shop. Here's where school's going to be. Here's where your family and friends are going to be. Here's where your entertainment's going to be. Here's where all the information you could ever want or need is going to be, you know? So it's not that, a teenager is having different sensations in their body. They're still human. But why talk to mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, guardian, whoever, when I have everything I need right here? We're talking about a relationship with screens that our generation and older simply, and we need to eat some humble pie, cannot relate to. We're talking about a generation today that does not know what life is like before social media. And especially in the age of AI and quote unquote fake news, like who can I trust? What's real? What's not? And I knew that it was time for me to step fully into this role when I couldn't get that reality off of my mind. I
Wow.
love teaching. Music is a huge part of my life. And now I get to use those teacher skills, but in a brand new way. It's one thing to chunk down information like, hey, man, like you do this tool. This is how this exercise works. I'm a total nerd about dialoguing, as you can tell. This is how it works.
Right, right,
It's
right.
one thing to do that, but another thing to be like, listen, brother, I've been there. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not broken. Here's what we're going to do as a team together. I have the opportunity today to be that older brother I didn't have, to be that father figure that I wish I had, or just someone who cares enough to, help me out of this particular maze that is adolescence, you know?
Yeah.
That's
It's huge, man. It's huge because I got a 2-year-old son, and to hear the way that you have just described it, it means a lot to me because I need to understand that, that is different now. I wanna give you your roses for stepping into that calling and saying, "Okay, like, this is it's going to be an issue," and you had the foresight to understand that, and, that not a lot of people have, and it's the same thing going on right now. There are some people that are, like, really charging forward and getting on the AI, it's relevant. It's relevant. It's changing everything. And so we'd be foolish to think that it's not important to, you know, make some moves here, make some changes. And so I think that you working with especially teenagers, man, because they need it. They need it. And it's just not as simple as maybe you and I had it. And it's just the truth, right? So how does it look like these days? Like how are you doing this work?
Yeah, so right now there's actually 2 programs that I have, which I'm really excited about. Literally, it's been my passion project all of about last year. Just all of my professional experience, all my lived experience, and what I started with was thinking about the parents because when you're a parent or guardian, especially in 2026, maybe hearing some of these buzzwords in this conversation, whether it's porn or AI or social media, whatever, there, from my experience, there are these sort of question marks over people's heads, like what's out there, or even I just straight up don't know what to say when it comes to having the birds and the bees talk, quote unquote, or just saying the word sex or saying the word porn. Like it just feels a little weird, like I'm doing something wrong just by saying it. And what I want to do is, first of all, reassure that parent that it's very, very normal. But what I did was I built this program called the Rebooted Teen Parent Program as well. We're literally it's a series of modules as far as like this is how to engage in these types of discussions. These are some things to consider. Here are some conversation starters, some do's and don'ts. And if you feel you're getting a lot of value from the free stuff, that program's free, by the way, and if you feel it's the right move for your child, let's talk about the Rebooted Teen program. And as far as how that works, it starts off as like a series of modules. There's a community and, there's like a weekly live session where we go live on a call just like this. And, we just talk, we kick it. We check in, we count our wins. We're not just like, all right, how long has it been since you acted out? Because we're not going to measure our success by however long it's been since the last time we acted out. We're going to measure our success by something that I call in the program your reboot definition. Now,
Say that again. Say it again.
your reboot definition. So when I
Got it.
talk about the word rebooted, some people say recovery. I like the word rebooted personally, but because we're literally talking about a reconstruction of your brain, you know, and it's not an overnight thing. Like statistically speaking, it takes about a year and a half, 2 years for the brain to fully rewire from that of like an avid porn watcher to that of like someone who doesn't have that type of dependency anymore. They use the word 90 days, and that's about statistically as long as it takes to start a new habit, right? But to
Right.
make it part of your identity. Because we're
Right.
aiming more for just like, oh, let me do X instead of Y. That's not what recovery is, right? It's like sobriety is a part of recovery, right? But
Right.
it's not the entirety of it. It's
Well, I think what you're talking about is what I call clarity, right? Like I was gaining more clarity. I feel like I still am. Like I would, that whole like a month, or 2 months, and then a year, the huge milestones, certainly. But clarity continued well on down the road. And
yeah,
the more clarity that I got, the more I realized how unclear I was, right? So, but at first it typically starts like what I call like in the trenches. It is just, some people call it white knuckling and all of that, but
willpower.
it isn't simple. It's trading one action for another, at least for the meantime, because you just got to figure out whatever that puzzle is for you to stop that action. for whatever amount of time you can handle at first, which is usually not a lot, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's why it's such a tough puzzle to solve. I have a question about, like, so you've got the parents and that they are kind of going through, and I'm imagining they are asking themselves, like, does my child have an issue? And then they're kind of navigating that. I'm curious, are you talking directly to some teens? Like, are some teens raising their hand and saying, and I know the numbers would probably be lower. I mean, in my imagination, I could be way wrong, but are there some teens raising their hand and saying, hey, I got a problem with this? I mean, what are you seeing out there?
Well, starting with the parents, yeah. I mean, like the things that we would first talk about are just some red flags to look out for, you know? And again, like my kind of catchphrase, and I'm probably going to put on a bumper sticker somewhere, like if you lead with shame, they will stay the same.
Wow.
That's a
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah.
And
It's a good one too, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And it's the way I was raised. It's the way that many of us were raised, when it comes to, whether it's irresponsibility online, this isn't how I raised you. How could you watch this filth, that, and this? It's- You know, it will teach a child to kind of keep things as a secret. Oh, okay. I can't talk about this here. This is an unsafe thing when it's a part of life, when it comes to your sexual nature. So what we talk about is the word that I always come back to, curiosity. That needs to be modeled. It needs to be demonstrated. It's so important to me. It's like I have this analogy that I shared on a call recently. Like when I was younger, I used to do like a lot of like theater and stuff like that. And basically, in an ideal, healthy circumstance, I like to think of the home as like the rehearsal room. And what I mean by that is it's not the stage. We're not there to perform. We're there to work on the show. It's the opportunity and the environment for you to learn and to mess up. And we have all the different directors with the different specialties. You got your music director, you got your choreographer, your lighting director, stage manager, whatever. But we're all there to work on the show. The expectation isn't to be perfect. The expectation isn't to again, we're talking about a generation with the expectation to be like this 24/7 performer on a virtual stage. It's like the last thing that they need is their home to be a stage too.
Right, 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 right.
So
And
we really
it's
talk a lot
giving,
about.
so having that freedom, right? To understand that, it is a natural tendency. It's an urge. There's all kinds of biology going on, especially with teenagers. And so, yeah, I think it is I believe that it's the parents' responsibility to alleviate that shame. And I feel like when it comes to that, and I'm a new parent, so what do I know? But like, I feel like we're headed in a better direction because, going back to my grandparents, man, it was like you just didn't talk about it, man. That was just how things were. And so I want to say that we're headed in a better direction because there's people like yourself letting parents know that, like, this is what will happen if you lead with the shame, right? Like it's 100% what is going to be the result, and it's not what you want. And so that is curious. No, so you were talking about the parents, and so I guess like back to the teen element of it, right? Like, what are you seeing out there? Like, how many of these teens? Because now I'm just thinking about, like, how cooperative are they?
It's interesting because when we first start out, here's the difference between like, the grown adults that I coach versus like, like a minor. A grown adult will join on his own volition because there's a rocky divorce happening because of their compulsive behavior. They're trying to make things better because of their own reasons. A 16-year-old is in this program because they're in trouble. You see what I'm saying? Because mom or dad caught them one too many times and they're there to get better. But I don't lead with porn stuff because again, it's not just the anti-porn club. It's what are we doing to hold ourselves accountable to being the kind of person that we actually want to be? It's like, I'll give you a quick example. Like the first exercise and like the first module that we have in the rebooted teen program, I like to call it the park bench exercise. So basically, you imagine yourself sitting on a park bench. It's almost summer. It's a beautiful day, right? You're outside, and a couple minutes go by. You're enjoying the weather around you, and you notice someone sits next to you on that park bench. And this person next to you, you look over and you notice that the person who sat down is you about 2 years into the future, fully rebooted, meaning no longer dependent upon sexual compulsive behaviors, just rewired man, literally like healed, someone who is actually living out the kind of life that they want to.
Right.
And what you do is just put pen to paper as far as like, if you were to ask them, like, what's life looking like for you? You know, what are you feeling? What's going on with you? My role as a coach is to not, well, here's the deal. I can't, like, if you were my client, I can't tell you what's important to you. I can't read your mind. I can't ninja my way into your skull. Like, I can't tell you what's important to you. What I can do is provide the system and facilitation for you to be really real when it comes to identifying what it is that you actually want beyond the behavior itself. We start there. And it's a matter of what will it take to get there and what's getting in the way. It's about, I mean, that comes from my world of teaching. If I'm just like giving the answers away all day long, well, that's not really
Right.
teaching, is it? It's
Sure.
providing the facilitation so that they come to the answers on their own. Like, what do you want? It's not just like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's just like, what kind of person do you want to be? What's the place that you actually want to make your decisions from? From a place of fear of missing out, from a place of, feeling like you need the acceptance of your peers or the people around you, or from a place of joy, from a place of just groundedness, from a place of peace, from a place of clarity, like that's what it's all about. And
Yeah.
we dive into the science as far as like, what excessive porn use does with your brain, but that comes later. What we come is defining who they want to be, defining the finish line for themselves, and really getting hip to the fact that, like, hey, I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do, and I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I am here to hold you accountable to becoming the person that you actually want to be. What does that include? What does that not include? And we're going to work on it again as a team. We're going to give you accountability partners. We're going to meet up once a week. We're going to check in and count your wins because that's your reticular activating system at work. Once
Sure.
you
Sure. Sure.
focus on all your slips, it's like, don't think of a pink elephant, right?
Right. Right. Right.
That's all you're going to focus on. If your whole, rebooting journey is just going to be don't slip, don't slip, don't slip,
Right. Right. Right.
that's all you're going to be thinking about. So
That's
keep your eye literally on the prize. Start
yeah,
there.
that to know that our brains don't understand don't,
Yeah.
it's a realization. Our minds, they don't understand not and don't, right? That it doesn't negate whatever comes. Whatever comes is just is. And so
Yeah.
it's a serious tool for people that want to make a difference and change things. Man, that's killer. And so I want to know so how do people begin? I know now that you've mentioned the two programs and I guess speak to what who would really, I mean, I guess parents and teens, right? But like who needs to be where, right? And how do they go find it?
Yeah, if any of this is resonating with you, if you're a parent or guardian or if you know someone that might be struggling, easiest place to go is rebootedteen.com, all one word. That's where you find access to the free resources and the Rebooted Teen Parent Program. Again, it's my heart to yours, it's totally zilch, totally free. And again, if you feel you're getting a lot of value, like, oh wow, like, okay, this is how I engage with this conversation. So I don't got to feel so unprepared. I don't feel so kind of like, do as I say and not as I do. It's like, you don't have to feel so awkward. It doesn't have to be a weird conversation.
Yeah, and you're speaking right to me because I'm, my son is 2.
Right,
And
right.
I'm like, I'm looking down at the little iPad and all the stuff, and I'm thinking to myself like, "Oh my God, well, like, what am I gonna do?" Right? I am happy to hear that there's people like yourself who are equipping parents because things are just, changing at an absolutely exponential rate. And so we need all the help that we can get. And so I'm just thankful, like, thank God there's people out there trying to help the future me, right? The future me down the road is just so concerned about my son and my children, and then, but also other teens and the future of us, right? Because it's just things have gotten dark when it comes to porn very quickly, right? This is all really new stuff, man. I mean, booze and drugs. I mean, especially booze. I mean, this we're talking over 100 years of trying to gain some traction when it comes to staying off substances. But porn is kind of new. Well, I mean, in the sense that we're seeing it on in our box, like to your point, right? It's all there. So, man, what an absolute blessing, brother. But yeah, I want to say thank you, man. Thank you, Chris, for what you do. Thank you for having boots on the ground out there and helping the youth. Yeah. Yeah, you're a blessing, brother. And so I appreciate your time.
You're awesome. I love your energy and I love your positivity, and I truly appreciate the platform and the opportunity to go back and forth with you. This was great.
You got it, brother. All right. This has been another episode of The Next Fix. See you on the next